Hey everyone, Erick Stakelbeck here. Today on the newscast, the Iranian regime testing underground ballistic missiles. Are they sending a message to the United States? Get all the details coming up. Hey folks, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman newscast. Well, our move is complete. Over the past week or so, I've been telling you that my family and I were in the process of a move. We are here now. We're all moved in, but now we have to unpack, which isn't very fun, but we're very happy about where we are. And it's good to have the move over because there's a whole lot to talk about now. Our usual Watchman studio, our set will be set up very soon in our new home. But for now, I'm coming to you with some very important information. Since we last saw each other on Tuesday's newscast, the Iranian regime up to some very dangerous tricks in the Middle East. Also, we have to talk about this attempted Hezbollah infiltration across the Israeli border a few days ago. A very, very big event. Before we get into it, I just want to encourage you to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube and click the notification button so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Hey folks, we are fast approaching 100,000 subscribers right here on YouTube with the Watchman News channel, and we cannot do it without you. So thank you, and God bless you. We are going to continue to bring you the kind of cutting-edge information that you just won't hear anywhere else, certainly not in the mainstream media. Okay, let's get into it. The Iranian regime just yesterday, Wednesday, July 29th, held a very interesting military drill in not only in the Persian Gulf, but in the desert in central Iran. This drill was called Great Prophet 14. It was run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. As we've told you many times here on the newscast, the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps, are really the vanguard of that Iranian regime, with answering not only to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, but with also the control of the Iranian economy, the Iranian nuclear program. Qasem Soleimani, the terror master, was a major figure, obviously, in the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps before he was taken out earlier this year. So it gives you the idea of the strength and the significance of the IRGC in the Iranian regime. They are really the guardians of the current Iranian government. So it's no surprise that they were in control of this very important drill, Great Prophet 14. And what it consisted of really was a direct threat, in my view, to the United States. Now, what they did was they set up a mock aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf, and they attacked this aircraft carrier. It was clearly based on a U.S. aircraft carrier in the Gulf, and they attacked this replica in three ways. Number one, with ballistic missiles. We'll get to that in a second, why it was so significant. With ballistic missiles, with drones, and with swarms, I guess you would say, of these speedboats that Iran, we've seen it many times over the past several years, right? The Iranian regime sends its thugs in speedboats to harass U.S. shipping and the ships of other nations in the Persian Gulf. They kind of surround ships with these speedboats. Many times they'll try to storm ships. So a very dangerous thing, clear provocations time and time again by the regime. But that was what they did with this aircraft carrier in what they saw, or what they intended to be, a show of force. Now, 2 U.S. bases in the region, once the ballistic missiles started flying, folks, 2 U.S. bases in the region went on high alert. Again, a powder keg, a very dangerous situation with Iran kind of playing around here, firing ballistic missiles, a very serious thing, at least in the eyes of the United States, and rightfully so. So 2 U.S. bases went on high alert. Here's, for me, the main takeaway of this. Hey, this is not the first major military drill that Iran has conducted in the Persian Gulf, and it won't be the last, I'm sure. But here was the big takeaway for me and for you, and really the breaking news element of today's newscast. Iran fired underground ballistic missiles. Now, this is a potential game changer. We told you a little while ago on the newscast, I think it was a week or two ago, that Iran was boasting, regime officials were boasting that they have underground missile facilities along the Persian Gulf, in the southern part of the Gulf on the coast. We know that about a month ago, Israel, possibly Israel, struck a major Iranian underground missile facility to the east of Tehran. These are the reports. So we know that they are boasting about having underground ballistic missiles, and now apparently yesterday they used them, they put them into action. Why is this significant? You say, big deal. A missile is a missile. They have ballistic missiles. They have the largest, does Iran, ballistic missile stockpile in the entire Middle East. They can strike Israel, Saudi oil fields, even some of Europe with those ballistic missiles that they currently possess. But the big takeaway here, the fact that they are underground, it's real simple. They are harder to destroy. If you have a missile silo that's above ground, obviously an Air Force can take them out pretty easily. But if you have these underground missile silos, underground missile facilities, obviously they're a lot tougher to destroy. If they are deep underground, they are fortified. Hey, the ground opens up and the missiles come out and take flight. But an opposing Air Force would obviously find something underground much harder to destroy than something above ground. The Iranian regime is not stupid. We know that, unfortunately. Hey, the Persians, modern day Iran was ancient Persia. They invented the game of chess. They are very savvy. They know what they are doing. So they are moving many of their assets underground, including, key point here, aspects and elements of their nuclear weapons program underground, deep underground, literally in fortified bunkers. So opposing air forces, the U.S., Israel, or what have you, cannot strike at them or would find it very difficult to destroy them without some huge bunker busting type of bombs. So that is the intent. It's a dangerous thing. And Iran says if we have these missiles, ballistic missiles underground, and we can strike from underground, obviously a major advantage for them in any future conflict. Now, another key point here was the technique, I guess you would say, that they used in this mock drill yesterday, Great Prophet 14, as they called it. Not only the underground ballistic missiles, which were a big deal clearly, but the swarm of drones and also the speedboats. So there's three elements to these Iranian attacks. We've seen them use two of these components just recently, September 2019, folks. Remember that major attack against Saudi oil fields. Now, in that attack, the Iranian regime launched ballistic missiles from Iranian soil as well as drones. So a two-pronged attack. Now, some are saying look, we've had this string, we've talked about it many times here in the newscast. Some are saying with this string of mysterious explosions that is happening in Iran over the past month now, explosion after explosion, striking sensitive ballistic missile and nuclear sites inside Iran. Obviously, a major embarrassment and a black eye for the regime, putting it on its heels. Right under their noses, these attacks are happening. No one has claimed responsibility, but the Iranian regime is breathing threats of retaliation. They have their bullseye on Israel. They are blaming Israel for this string of mysterious explosions. And we've talked about here in the newscast, okay, how will Iran retaliate? Perhaps out of Syria, where they are obviously entrenched for a reason to strike Israel from Syrian soil. Perhaps they send missiles and the drone swarms from Syria into northern Israel, God forbid. But these are the kinds of plans and possibilities I can assure you that the Israel Defense Forces are preparing for. Speaking of retaliation and Iran's presence in Syria and also in southern Lebanon at Israel's northern doorstep, Hezbollah. Now, we saw this coming about a week and a half ago now. We talked about it on our Tuesday, July 21st newscast. Check it out on our archives right here on YouTube. All sorts of great material under newscasts. We talked about Israel's strike, reportedly an Israeli strike, south of Damascus, near the Damascus International Airport against Iranian assets there. Apparently in that strike, we know at least 5 Iranian-linked fighters were killed, but also a Hezbollah fighter was killed in that strike. Now, the way it has worked over the past few years is when Israel takes out a Hezbollah terrorist who has deadly intent against the Jewish state, Hezbollah usually tries to retaliate in some way. So after it became clear that last week a Hezbollah fighter was killed in Syria, probably in an Israeli strike, it became clear that okay, Hezbollah will not take this lying down. Their MO is to retaliate in some way. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Did we see that? Did we see the Hezbollah retaliation earlier this week? Tough to say, because if it was their retaliation, it was very ineffectual, folks, to say the least. Basically what happened along that Israel-Lebanon border, a few Hezbollah fighters attempted to infiltrate the border into northern Israel. Thankfully, the Israel Defense Forces spotted them, fired at them, chased them away. These Hezbollah fighters retreated back into Lebanon, and that was that. So if that was a retaliation, it wasn't much of a retaliation. Now, two things here to remember. Actually, three things. Number one, a little spark like that could cause an inferno. Just the mere attempt of Hezbollah fighters to infiltrate into Israel could cause a much larger conflict. As we know, the Middle East is an absolute powder keg, and something that seems like a small incident could spark a major regional war. That's how tense it is right now. So this was a very, very dangerous situation that took place just a few days ago along that Israel-Lebanon border. Number two, Hezbollah leaders are saying, this wasn't us. We didn't attempt an incursion into Israel. Israel is lying. Our fighters never attempted an incursion into Israel. If you want to believe Hezbollah, you're welcome to, but let's face it, this is a terrorist organization that's not known for truth-telling. So this incursion did happen. The IDF has video of it as well. Number three, some are saying and suggesting that this was just Hezbollah probing. The real retaliation is coming down the pike. That's what some analysts are saying. Perhaps Hezbollah was probing to see the Israeli response, maybe to find some kind of weak point along the border, and the real response is coming soon. I hope not. I hope that this failed attempt was the attempt. Hezbollah saying we did something at least, because Hezbollah, remember folks, right now, just as their Iranian master, they are on the ropes. A coronavirus is hitting Lebanon, Hezbollah's home base, very hard. The Lebanese economy is in tatters. And look over at Iran. Hezbollah's patron, the Iranian regime, slammed by COVID-19. Not only the regime officials, but the Iranian people. We do not want to see the people in Iran and Lebanon suffer. Obviously, civilians in those countries, unfortunately, in both nations, they are under the heel of terrorist regimes, whether Iran or Hezbollah doesn't run Lebanon, but in many ways, folks, they are the most powerful actor in that country. So both countries struggling right now with the pandemic and economically as well, on their heels there. But also, Hezbollah and Iran have taken their lumps since really 2020 began in Syria, in southern Lebanon, and in Iran itself. Hey, we talked about the string of mysterious explosions that no one has claimed responsibility for, that have targeted Iran's nuclear weapons and their ballistic missile sites. Soleimani killed the terror master, the architect, earlier in the year. We have the Iranian regime in Syria licking its wounds as Israel, time and time again, strikes at Iranian fighters and military bases and assets in Syria. And we have Iran continuing to attempt to transit these precision-guided missiles, advanced missile technology, into Hezbollah. And we have Israel taking them out time and time again, taking out these convoys that are on their way to Syria and southern Lebanon to equip Hezbollah. So I say all that to say, the Iranian regime and Hezbollah have had a very tough 2020, to say the least, and their plans have been pushed back as Israel goes on the offensive, rightly so, because if they do not, and look, Iran was on its way under Soleimani, their plan of surrounding Israel on all sides would really take a major step. So Israel, in my view, has to keep the pressure up. That's exactly what they're doing. And just from being on the Syrian border many times with the Israel Defense Forces over the past few years, at live fire drills, at tank drills with the IDF, what a privilege. Our Watchman TV show team has been able to join the IDF on these drills. I know that they are prepared and they are ready, because we know that great northern war that we've talked about many times here on the newscast, folks, it's not a question of if, but when. We know that showdown between Israel and Hezbollah and the Iranian regime, these various Iranian-backed radical terror militias there in the north, we know the showdown is coming. Not if, but when. So it is comforting to me to know, number one, that the Israel Defense Forces are prepared. Number two, that Israel has a friend, a strong friend right now in the U.S. under the current administration, certainly a strong friend to Israel. And number three, probably the best thing about it, folks, I know that the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, neither slumbers nor sleeps. He's on the throne. He has his hand on his land. He has his hand on his people. So take heart. God will never leave or forsake the nation of Israel. The book of Amos is very clear. The people of Israel have returned to their ancient and ancestral homeland. Key word here, never to be uprooted again. Never. So take heart. Continue to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Hey, pray for northern Israel, those communities which are kind of beleaguered right now. Beautiful communities, but with the barbarians literally at the gates. Real quick before we go, just want to mention, new time slot, remember, for our Watchman TV show, which you can watch every Thursday night, if you live here in the United States, every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, Fridays, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on TBN. And hey, make sure to subscribe, especially if you live. We have viewers of the newscast from everywhere. I get comments from all over the world. It's such a blessing. But subscribe, because you can also catch the show right here, right after it airs over the weekend. We will post new episodes of the Watchman TV show right here on our YouTube channel. So subscribe and click the notification button. Also remember the audio book deal that we have right now with Audible, the world leader in audiobooks. Go to www.audibletrial.com/thewatchman to get your free audio book. You see the URL there on your screen. You can also check it out in the description underneath this video. Great deal. You can get one of my books, The Terrorist Next Door, The Brotherhood, or ISIS Exposed, for absolutely free if you sign up for a trial with Audible. Good stuff. Take advantage of it. Hey, thanks for joining us today here on the Watchman Newscast. God bless you, and until next time, never hold your peace.